Hi, I'm Dr. Randy Bach. I'm with the Newton Taxpayers Association. I'm the president, and I'm honored to represent Newton. But in today's episode, really frankly, I'd like to speak, in a sense, for the voters of Massachusetts. And we are completely honored to have Mike Minogue with us today. And he, as of this weekend, a couple days ago, won the top spot for nomination for governor with endorsement of the Republican Party. I think there might be still a primary. We'll see. But I'm honored to have you here with us today, yeah. Mike Minogue. He has an incredible history. I can let you do it a little bit, but I'll just throw in a few tidbits. He's a West Point graduate. He served at the point of the spear in Iraq. He's a brave man. Some of our histories overlap a little bit. We both have ancestors from the Bronx. So naturally, I got to like the guy. But I like him for other reasons. I think he's a generous soul, and he is somebody who exemplifies his faith and lives according to high tenets and high standards. So I'm very much honored to have you on our show. Thank you for coming on. Would you like to ask that introduction?
Sure. So, Dr. Randy, thanks so much for having me. And I feel very lucky, grateful, and blessed that we had such a dominant win on Saturday. I am now officially the Republican-endorsed candidate for governor. And so I really do appreciate all of the volunteers, the supporters, the delegates, the prayer warriors, everyone. There was a lot of work and a lot of patience to be there all day. And I've had a great experience in running, meeting incredible people, because what I'm really focused on is solving problems and helping to make Massachusetts a blessed place to live, work, and raise a family. And that's a blessing that I had growing up with my parents.
Yeah, no, I've been in and out of Massachusetts for a long time. I grew up in New York City, but my grandparents were in Brookline, and my aunt and uncle and cousins were in Newton, and I wound up living here and actually live in Newton. So my experiences to Newton go back a long way. We would war, my cousins and I, over, Bobby Orr versus Raj O'Bear and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, Bruins versus the Rangers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A little bit of rivalries here and there. But I got to see probably were the golden days. I mean, Newton itself, we boasted before I was here, the number one and number two school system in the nation, probably the number one or two safest city in the nation. A lot of those things have gone by the wayside. And again, I like to talk about the state in general, not have it focus on Newton, but I think it's an exemplar of what can go wrong. And I was mentioning in our green room, that Detroit was probably the wealthiest, top 5 wealthiest cities on earth around 1960 to 1965. And things can happen, and we sometimes may forget that the places we get, the wealth we get, can be, is gained, but it can also dissipate. It can also go awry. And I'd like to talk principally not just about kind of the fall of Newton from some of the higher places in their education standards, standard of living and whatnot, but in general, what's going on with Massachusetts? I know for a fact that we are one of the top 5 exodus states. Not the biblical exodus, but close. People are voting with their feet and their moving vans. Can you tell us what's going on with that and how we would alleviate?
Sure. I think the big issue is that we have a governor that is overtaxing, over-regulating, and overspending. So if you do all three together, you get debt. And what happens is people and businesses and entrepreneurs can leave, and they are leaving. The term used to be mass exodus, meant something else. Now it means Massachusetts exodus. And we've got to do something to fix that. And the way you can fix that is we have to address the overspending. And you can address the overspending by getting some discipline around the budget. So one, we all voted, most of us voted, 72% voted for the state audit and for the legislature. So I will do that. I'll use a third party as well. But I'll also audit the $63 billion budget. And over the last 6 months at my own expense, I hired a third party audit firm to come in. I did go through all the books all the way back to 2019, and we have $120 billion in debt. It's growing at 4% interest, so it's 4.8 billion a year in interest. And we also have over $20 billion in bond debt. And then I can't get to the end of what that is, but just this past year alone, the governor took another $8 billion bond debt. So we need to be careful because our top 2 employers do not pay taxes. That's hospitals and universities. And therefore, we need entrepreneurs. We need businesses. We are last in the nation in private job growth. That we've never been last. It's hard to be last out of 50. And we are second worst in the nation in debt per person. So that's like being, in a football analogy, it's like being small and slow, right? You can't do worse than that. And we have a governor that doesn't understand businesses or entrepreneurs or how it works. And I am a person who's been a CEO for 19 years. I also have companies that are small and private. I've sweated the details. I've put in manufacturing, and that's what I'm going to bring. I'm going to bring the mindset for entrepreneurs and for businesses and grow. Because if we grow, then that tax dollar requirement for the state is paid for businesses that are growing and not on the back of the taxpayers. Because if they don't change it, we're going to spiral, and we will be more like Illinois, and Boston is going to look a lot more like Chicago.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was reading a thing in The Ringer by Kirk Goldberry, and he's a kind of sports analyst, and he was trying to say, how can we figure out the next champion in the NBA? And he looked at these various categories, and basically nobody who's not in the top 5 in offense and defense, hopefully both, ever wins. I mean, they do occasionally. There's few outliers. But pretty much all the teams are going to be in the top 10 in offense and or defense, and most of them are congregated at the top 10 in offense and defense. So the better teams win. So that's
Right.
not shocking. So in the NBA or whatever league you have, there are usually about 30 teams here and there, hockey, whatever. We got about 30 teams in all these leagues.
Yep.
And the better teams win. The worst teams are sad. You know, it's better winning. You know, we've had a lot of winning from our teams and so forth, but if you want to attract good players, good team, whatever, you need good, you need a good cohort of leaders and so forth. The Patriots get better players when they have better team.
Right.
The free agents want to come there.
Right.
And I'm just using this as an analogy,
Yeah.
although we could talk about sports for the rest of the hour.
Yeah.
But I
Well, you can specifically say we're not going to get those athletes free agents because our taxes, we have 8 taxes. And so when you add up all of our 8 taxes, Massachusetts takes more of your revenue than 90% of America. So if I have a hard, or when you ask people to name all 8, most people can't.
Right.
Can you name all 8?
No.
All right, IPSEE, and then you get your capital gains, millionaires, and death tax. IPS, that's the income property sales. So,
Wow.
And then you buy a car, you pay sale tax, and then you pay an excise tax on it.
Yeah.
And you pay that excise tax every year. It never goes to zero, and they don't actually depreciate the car the way. So it's just like they've run out of ways to tax us, and when you die, they come in and take it again. Not even California has a death tax. So the death tax alone is $800 million out of a $87 billion total budget. That is just a punitive tax. And then you put the millionaire's tax on it, you put on all these other taxes, and what you get is people saying, okay, I can leave now. And
Yeah.
that's what's happening.
No, I think it's a good point. I mean, they have actually the Department of Revenue, and it's called the Internal Revenue. And everyone in government talks about we need to get more revenue. Now,
Right.
revenue is something that actually happens with companies.
Right.
You know, and companies, you sell something, people, you don't have to twist people's arm to buy something on Amazon. They see something, they want it, they buy it. So with that, Amazon has great revenue. Okay, that's revenue that you earn. It's different when you can get it at the, basically at the threat of prison and the threat of sanctions and whatnot. You can't really run your life. So anyway, so it's a punitive thing, and they use the same word, revenue. So there's a lot of, kind of chicanery and sleight of hand in using that kind of word.
Yeah.
But I think the people pretty much in government don't realize is that you can't, the great philosopher Mick Jagger, you can't always get what you want. You can try sometime, you get what you need. But anyway, but what they don't realize is the more they take, they think it's just there to take.
Right.
When they take, you can do that once, but then everyone, shame, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, I'm gone, I'm gone to
Right.
another state.
Yeah.
And so, this concept of taxation, I think, I grew up in New York City, and axiomatically I was a lefty, a Democrat, and whatnot. Everybody I knew was a Democrat, my parents and all that kind of stuff. And I just kind of assumed, rich people got to tax them. And it had no concept. It was kind of the Reagan eras when I was kind of coming of age as a voter and whatnot. I saw that, it was crazy. And I was getting the Wall Street Journal at the time, so a lot of things going on in my mind that kind of conservativized me in a sense. But, they had tax cuts. And all of a sudden, there was more, quote unquote, revenue coming in.
Right.
Because, if you kind of lay back, you let the plants grow and,
Right.
and mature and so forth, you get a better harvest.
Yeah.
And to take kind of a mature aspect that I don't think the Democrats have that kind of sensibility about
Right.
business. So I'd like to kind of segue into your sensibilities about business because you have
Sure.
some.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you pay for bills in the state, there's three ways. You got people, you got businesses, and you got the federal government, right? That's the main. And in businesses, it's for profit. And so that's it. And you can either take money from it and burden it, or you can create an environment where businesses can thrive and grow. Abiomed grew to billions of dollars in revenue, paid hundreds of millions of taxes, built buildings, and have manufacturing there. And then the manufacturing building there pays out to all these other suppliers. We did, hundreds of millions of investment in the construction. That's how you're going to grow. And life sciences, high tech, and most important, manufacturing. We have to get made in Massachusetts. I would be so focused on those companies. I'd encourage everyone to buy from them. That's how you secure technology, innovation, high tech manufacturing. It's also how you secure and solidify a middle class and create wealth for generations. And that's something that we got to do better. Who is going to come to Massachusetts right now with 8 taxes? 20-something years ago, when I recruited people to come here to Massachusetts for Abiomed, people loved it here. They love Boston, they love the sports teams, they love the weather. It's hard now. And our young people, between the ages of 25 to 44, that's 60% of the people leaving. That's our future. And my nieces and nephews all tried to make it here. They're all gone. Tennessee, Carolinas, less taxes, better job opportunity. And it comes down to simplifying. We need to do the audit, hold people accountable. We need to make things more affordable, which means cut taxes, cut the utility energy fee. You can get rid of a third of that, and have cheaper, safe, clean energy. And you do that with natural gas pipelines and nuclear energy. And then we have to create jobs. We have great health care. You're a doctor. You understand we have some of the best health care here, but it's the most expensive. And we have to find a way that we stop burning out our general practitioners and our nurses and doctors. General practitioners today, if you get a bulk of your patients from Medicaid and Medicare, Medicaid pays 60% less than commercial insurance. And as these companies leave, we have less commercial insurance. So they're losing money, they're leaving or retiring, which means more people go to the emergency room for their general care. That costs more, it's not efficient. We've got to fix that. And we have a mental health crisis. We have a mental health crisis. Again, the worst treatment, you don't want people going to the emergency room, but that's where they go. And when they go to the emergency room, it's not good care, it's more expensive. And something we can do is we can get that back into the communities, back with the general practitioners and counselors. It'll be better care, it'll be more specialized, and there's a lot of things we can do. A lot of it is common sense and just wanting to solve problems, and that's why we need a new kind of governor who's actually run a business, understands healthcare, understands innovation and manufacturing, because that's the solution. The solution is not what we're currently doing, more taxes.
Yeah. So Massachusetts has been blessed in many ways, or things coalesced for however it happened. I was at the convention on Saturday as a delegate. It was my first time. And there were a lot of excellent things. I mean, frankly, the best thing about it was the people. It's a hugely civil society. It's a high trust society. And so a lot of people just very friendly. They bend over backwards for you. You could literally drop your wallet in the place and you'd have it back in 5 minutes. It's a very wonderful thing. You understand how well people can get along together. And everyone's happy. There were, competing interests, different candidates running and so forth, but everyone was civil to each other. It was a really nice place. But one thing that interested me was they were talking about kind of, Lexington, Paul Revere, Massachusetts, people forget, was the Tea Party. And, that was for, basically self-governance, self-representation, and the kind of the central precept of conservatives, leave us alone. Let us do the job. And you forget, because it's kind of, there's been kind of a sclerosis of government around. And we've had some Republican governors. We had Weld, Cellucci, Romney, and then Baker. So there have been some Republican governors, but it's always been, they're putting the brakes on what the Democrats do. There's an old joke, I'm not going to bore you too much with it, but the Democrats kind of want to careen the government down to the ground, and the Republicans are going the same direction with one foot on the brake. So, how do we get away from kind of this, what I call a sclerosis, it's medical, kind of the hardening of the arteries of our government, where things have become more bureaucratized and so forth. I think there's a fair amount, from what we've seen in Minnesota and California, there's a fair amount of fraud in government. So there's the audit there, but how do we kind of do kind of, I don't want to get too medical, but kind of like a governmental colonoscopy. How do we see and find, search, diagnose, and then get rid of the things that are not there or shouldn't be there?
Yeah. So I think that the fundamental role of the government is more around safety and fundamentals for our transportation. And what it's become now is it's overreaching into everything, including telling your towns what they can do, how they can do it, with unfunded mandates to build through the MBTA Communities Act. What we have to do is we have to start with in the towns and the cities. They get to decide their town, their development. They have to deal with the water, infrastructure, schools, all those things. And if you go in and you mandate to them, regardless of what they have, with no funding, build 1,500 condos, that's not a good solution. And we need to go back to the towns. Our towns only get 26% of their revenue back. It needs to be more like 35 to 40%. But in return for that, what we need to ask for is permitting to 45 days or less, and we need to go and get rid of the stretch codes on the building. Like these are basic things. So the government's just overreaching over and over, and that's slowing us down. That's creating more burden on people, and the overregulation is strangling entrepreneurs. And it's too hard when you look at if you're going to do manufacturing, a new building. Let's suppose you're going to build an investment in a building, but the permitting is going to take 5 years.
Yep.
Or let's suppose you're a builder and you're going to build single-family homes that used to take around 45 days. Now the permitting process can be a year and a half. Well, you can't make money on that, plus you have stretch codes. So we have to go back to the basics of what we want to do. We need to drive efficiency in manufacturing and building. We need to increase the supply, and we need jobs. Because if you get jobs and you grow, you are going to have companies that have growth and benefit, and they're going to pay a lot of the taxes in the town. Abiomed has paid out hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes and in salaries and things for the community. And that's what we need. We need more Abiomeds in order to help our economy. But we have the great pieces here. This is still one of those entrepreneurial
I totally agree
places.
With that. Yeah, I think we have the mechanics here. I think Harvard and MIT have somewhat besullied themselves these last few years politically, and they've gone, woke university. They've gone bent over backwards. It's been a long time in the making. That doesn't mean it has to be that way, but those things are there. We have kind of a technically educated populace, a lot of MIT grads in the neighborhood, a lot of engineering, businesses, and so forth. But those things will go. Winning culture, winning teams bring, and I only use the sports thing as an analogy. People want to be in a winning culture. They want to play for the Celtics. They want to play for the Patriots, and so forth. But you can have those here. But that microcosm, how that succeeds, has to be applied on a grander scale. And I don't think the culture has worked that way. Massachusetts actually did vote for Ronald Reagan, I think in '84.
He's the last one.
Yeah.
Eisenhower prior to that.
And so, you're talking about the audit. I had Jeff Cohn here about a year ago. He's Mass for Fair Elections. And if you want to find his site, it's the numeral 4 in there, but Massachusetts for Fair Elections. And there's probably a fair amount of fluffy, ghost-like, peripatetic people who may not be fully embodied as real human beings, maybe college kids who were here and they left. So there's a lot of kind of roles or avatars in which people can float in and vote, theoretically. And maybe those people do vote, but maybe not in their actual persons. We have no idea. There's no voter ID. Rhode Island is just one state over, and it's as Democrat as Massachusetts, but they have voter ID requirements. One other thing, while I'm diatribing a little bit, is that other states have charter schools where you can compete with the local schools and so forth. So just on those two things, I'm just wondering, how can we break through the current existing thing, because there's a huge kind of deadlock of Democrats and so forth. How do we cut through? How would we possibly get to voter ID? How would we clean the voter rolls? How would we get to schools competing with each other?
So first on voter integrity, we need to have, I think that everyone agrees, Democrat, Independent, Republicans, and we're an independent state. We're not blue or red. In D.C., they're trying to figure that out. Unfortunately, in Massachusetts, you don't even need a license anymore, and we give licenses out to illegal immigrants, and you don't even have to opt in. So you can go and vote without it. So I know there is a person that's now been assigned to our U.S. attorney that is all going to be about election fraud. So I think everyone should want credibility and integrity in our voting. That's core to American values. Second thing on education is how you break the cycle of poverty. And my wife and I, through the Mike and Renee Minogue Foundation, we've helped build schools, we support schools, faith-based schools, including charter schools. And you have certain zip codes. We have great schools here. But if you're in the wrong zip code in Massachusetts, you are going to not be in a great school. You won't have options. And for example, we were able to create the federal scholarship tax credit. So my wife and I helped make it a federal law. And what it will do is it will allow dollars to stay in Massachusetts if people give their tax dollars to scholarship granting organizations. They can be charter schools, they can be Catholic Schools Foundation, they can be private schools, it can even be tutoring and things for homeschooling to public schools. But in order for the federal scholarship tax credit to come here, the governor has to opt in. And I will on day one, and that will transform education. And that will impact around 80% of the parents that have kids in school because the money goes to them. It gives them choice. And that, again, is something so important that kids need access to.
So we're kind of rounding out our half hour here. I find you compelling in a lot of different ways, but kind of the opposite of what I was listening to WGBH today, and I think Evan Riley and Mike Hertz, they were discussing it, and one of the flags was kind of like, you are not afraid to mention your faith. I see that as a commendation, frankly. If Zohar Mamdani did it, everyone would be like, oh, golf clap, whatever. But somehow, you're, I assume, a practicing Catholic based on the Irish roots and all that kind of stuff. And I got to meet some parts of your lovely family. Your wife is just wonderful, I got to say.
She's wonderful.
I can't tell you, I didn't really meet her, but I saw her. She's, filled with happiness, and she's just like, emotive. And your kids look great. I didn't see all of them, but the ones I saw, nicely groomed. I think you can read a lot into somebody by, the fruits of their labor and the labor of their. Anyway, so tell us a little about what motivates you, how you keep motivated, and what are those guidance, and should WGBH be worried that you might mention some aspects of your faith, predicating your actions?
Yeah, so I think that we are a nation of faith, and I think it's very important for me that my faith is what grounds me in my humility, and it gives me a sincere desire to help people. I think faith also allows you to think about how do you serve a purpose bigger than yourself, and it's part of my leadership style. Now, I ran a public company for 19 years in Massachusetts. So the principles of faith, honesty, integrity, service to others, those are great leadership principles. And at Abiomed, we would always define your leadership philosophy. In my family, we have a family mission statement, we have a code of conduct, and frankly, it gives us, I think, strength and courage and optimism to do hard things. And whether you're in combat, or you're running a public company, or you're running for office, I think it just strengthens you because it gives you hope and optimism. And I believe, as the Bible said, with God all things are possible. And so that I think is one of the reasons I'm serving others and why I'm running for governor.
Well, that's wonderful. I was, while you were saying it, I was thinking of the contrary. There's a joke. Once you can fake sincerity, you have it made. It's hard to do that. If you don't have, if you're not, we all have our trials and struggles and so forth, and it's faith that kind of gets you through those, that lets you kind of pull yourself out and see your general pathway.
The average CEO makes it 5 years. I did it 19 years. And what drives people and hurts young people today or older people is anxiety. If you have faith, you don't have fear. And what anxiety is, it's bad for people. So fear is a function. If you're standing on the edge of a building, fear keeps you from falling off. Anxiety is like standing in the middle of a field and worrying about falling off a building. And my faith and what faith gives people is it gives them courage and it gives them optimism.
No, absolutely true. And it's like, I don't know how else to put it, but we have to have kind of our guidance. We have to have our guidance system that keeps us from doing the worst things. I'm going to give you an analogy. We spend a lot of time in health, in medicine, so we're talking about things like the food pyramid, this food you can't eat. And for a long, long time, I wrote this article like 20, 30 years ago. It was for Kevin MD, which is a small web page when web pages were coming into being. And it was like, we're paying attention to the food pyramid, but we miss the bigger picture. That is, people live longer, healthier lives being married than not being married. They live longer, healthier lives, as part of going to church and so forth, and being part of the community and giving. And it's not necessarily those things are directly, fixing your arteries or anything like
Yeah.
that, but people wind up having better behaviors
Right.
because they're doing that. I was just reading this thing that Adam Gase, who was coach of the Jets, somebody came in, Le'Veon Bell, and saw him doing cocaine. Okay, that's a lower risk thing when you're doing other stuff.
Yeah.
When you have a better mission and where you want to help people. So
Yeah. If you help people, it's shown there's an endorphin release. If someone helps you, you get an endorphin release. So a life of service usually yields gratitude and joy. And that's something that I think people that don't understand why it's important to help others don't appreciate there's actually a benefit as well.
Yeah, so I commend your courage. Obviously, the historic record shows that in your military service, so but kind of persevering through a company. But politics can be ugly.
Yeah.
And people attack you, and they attack you, and then they attack you on top of attacking you.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those kind of things that are coming your way?
So I listen to the voice of truth. I know and I'm confident in what are my principles. I act in ways that make my wife and kids and my God proud of me, and that's what I focus on. I can't control what other people say, but I know that if I'm serving a purpose bigger than myself, then I'll feel good and I'll have gratitude.
So we have just a minute or so. What would be your closing statement for?
Yeah, my closing statement is we do need a new kind of governor because we need someone that has a blueprint to fix the accountability with the audit, affordability with lowering your energy costs, opportunity with jobs, healthcare, and education, and keeps the community safe. You got to uphold the law, and we've got to do things that are going to help our citizens be safe and solve problems. And what the politicians want is they want us to hate each other, they want us to blame each other. I think that I want to solve problems, but I'm back to where I am. I'm so grateful, have a dominant win, 70% plus. It's one of the high numbers. And I'm so grateful to delegates, and I'm very confident that we're going to go into this general election and we're going to have victory, and we're going to be able to, again, make Massachusetts the best place to live, work, and raise a family. So thanks for having me.
I appreciate that. We do have, I guess, another minute, so I'll pop in a question. How would we be able to grow kind of the conservative movement? I think that, states are becoming more conservative.
Yeah.
Conservatives have more kids than liberals do, generally speaking. And places where there is a family, they tend to have a conservative dad, and dads are more conservative and so forth.
Yeah.
How do we grow that as a family so that Massachusetts can kind of become, in a sense, people don't realize it, but Massachusetts, the Back Bay and all that kind of stuff, it was an engineering marvel, and all the great inventions that happened through Harvard and MIT and so forth. How do we keep that engine going and alive?
I think we need to have people that are going to replace the politicians, people that come off the sidelines that had successful careers. Our founders envisioned people coming in and helping when times of need. And one of the great things about Massachusetts is we're not necessarily red or blue. We're independent. We're gritty. We want to be the best. We're very confident. So that competitive spirit is what we want to be. We want to be number one again in America, in the United States, in life sciences and manufacturing and education and healthcare. Put it all together. It's a great place. And this is our time, the tipping point to get it back.
Well, thank you so much. So people can find you, Mike Minogue, easy enough name to spell and so forth. And I hope people follow you and keep up with you and help out with your campaign.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Randy, for having me. Appreciate it.
Sure thing.